everyone, good morning, welcome back, thank you for being here. If you are new here, welcome. I am Marianne, I live here in Canada with my husband and 2 kids ages 5 and 7, and I make videos on simplifying life and motherhood through easy organization and decluttering. What I love about pantry decluttering and like a reset of the pantry is I feel like it naturally is a good lesson in shelf cooking or just meal planning in general. This video is part of my 10 things to declutter series where I share 10 items or categories to let go of, or suggestions, ideas of things that might lighten the load in certain spaces in the house to make it simplified, decluttered, and like more functional and easier and more of a pleasure to be in and to utilize and to open every single day. This is my pantry behind us. It is, I would say, like a good medium, like a good mid-range pantry where I think it's big and I think it has tons of room, but it is definitely like a 90s pantry, I would say. Category number 1, expired food. Everyone sort of has like a different range of how comfortable they are with expired food. I am not particularly picky about expired food. I mean, we don't eat expired food on the regular. However, if I found like a can of corn that was a month overdue, I'm definitely gonna be using it. Expired food doesn't come up too often in our house. However, it does periodically, and I know it can be a big struggle for a lot of people. So if you are picky about expired food, if you are like, absolutely not, I am not eating anything that expires even in the next 60 days, then go through, check all of the dates, check the dates on your cans, check the dates on anything in your pantry, and immediately let those go. So you can make a decision on what you want to do with them. If you just want to toss them, that's up to you. If your local food bank takes slightly expired food, that might be an option. Or if you have a family member or a friend who doesn't, like me, who is not picky with expired food, you might want to pass it along to them. So I will leave that up to you what you decide to do with them. But expired food is a huge category for so many clients we work for. If you have a huge pantry and it is overflowing right now and you were overwhelmed with items, just going through and choosing expired food or stale food or food that has gone bad and will never be eaten, that alone could be just something that you do today. So if you want to choose like one category, that would be a good one to start with. In that same category is food that might be stale, so like crackers or cereal. Someone had shared this like years ago and I never tried it before, but using the bottom of the bag of cereal or crackers and smushing it up, and you could just toss it in the freezer. We just tossed it in the freezer in a jar, and saving it to use as breadcrumb toppings. So like breadcrumbs, I think I used it maybe in a meatloaf or something. I can't remember what I ended up using them for, or topping on a casserole. Whatever it was, it ended up working really well and I loved it. That's a good way to let them go, but feeling like you're not wasting food. Category number 2 is food, and I guess anything that you have been gifted that you will probably never use. I generally love the idea of food gifts, using consumables as gifts, homemade jams, really fancy like sauces. However, I know for a lot of people, they get a lot of gifts and they get regular gifts and they get them like more than they can use. A lot of our clients, for example, will end up with a ton of items that have clearly been gifted to them over the years through Christmases or special occasions or hostess gifts that they're just never going to use. I personally don't have anything right now. However, I did keep this example from a recent job. So this was an item that was just like, it's this very cute bread dipper. So it's just a really nice like roasted garlic and Parmesan oil that you would dip your bread in, which is a really nice idea. However, this is a great example of items that get gifted and don't necessarily end up getting used. So if you have something like this that you think, you know what, like that like chili sauce that my daycare provider made for me 6 years ago, it's probably not going to get used. I would suggest letting it go. It clogs up your pantry. It distracts you from items that you could use and should be using, and it just like wastes space basically. On a similar note are items that you may have bought through like a fundraiser or a friend's like MLM. So this has come up before with people where they purchase things in support of like their friend's hockey team or their cousin's like sells Epicure. This is a great example. We find so many of these in clients' homes, and they just don't end up getting used. So maybe you're like, yes, I like the idea of it. I've just been kind of busy. It's got overlooked, but now it's time, okay, let's focus on this. Let's put this on your next meal plan. Get out your piece of paper, get out your meal plan for the next week or 2 weeks or month, and write this on your item. And then go to the back and figure out all the ingredients you need to go with it, and write those on your grocery list and eat it. So either use it up or get rid of it. Category number three are food items that don't have labels. So this is quite common in like baking supplies. If you buy anything from the bulk store, oftentimes we'll have people who go through like a really big phase of doing baking bread. And so they have, 6 flavors, 6 different types of sugar and flour, and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what any of this is. If you don't know what it is, I suggest either figuring out what it is and using it, or just letting it go and just kind of starting again. It's also a good lesson to put labels on things. So this is an example of something that I do not have a label on, and it's a little bit risky. This has happened before to me because everybody gets a lot of people I feel like out there, I'm buying it, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm always gonna remember what this is, and you're really confident in the moment, and then 6 months later, you're like, what the heck did I buy this for? So this is pumpkin pie spice, and I only have a tiny bit left, so I'm gonna make one more batch of pumpkin muffins, and then it's gonna be done with. But anything like this, if you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what this is, that might be a good item to let go of. Category number 4 are food items that your family might have outgrown. So items that maybe if you had little ones, you've had ones in your house before, and they are fully kind of done with that phase of life, or they refuse to eat another Nutri-Grain bar for the rest of their lives, then that may be something that you can either use up and put in their lunch or pass along. Category number 5 are items that don't belong in the pantry. So this would be something usually that would happen if you have a really big pantry. So if you have like the full walk-in pantry with the door, they can become drop zones for the whole main floor so easily. So if you do have that pantry, a large pantry, and it has become overwhelming and like full of stuff, you are not alone. It happens to so many people. I have a very love-hate relationship with those pantries because they're great, but I feel like they are a magnet for stuff. They get filled so quickly and so easily. And the one thing that ends up there often is stuff that does not or should not live in a pantry. So if you have a big pantry like that and you have decided, yes, I want to keep all of our pet food and our pet supplies in there, and that works for you and you have space for it, amazing. But if over the years you have somehow accumulated an entire box of outdoor toys, or your Lego collection somehow ended up in the pantry, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much other stuff in here, I don't even have room for food, then that is probably a sign to get rid of everything out of the pantry that doesn't belong there. If you're thinking that it sounds like an overwhelming task, you don't necessarily have to actually declutter and get rid of items. If just the decision of moving them out of the pantry into your basement or toy room or a bedroom, wherever they belong, that might be just one first step towards having a more peaceful pantry. In that same category, I also suggest getting rid of organizational products that just don't function for you. So if you went on an organizing kick 6 years ago and you bought a bunch of different bins and turntables and cute little can holders, and they looked great and you thought they would help with function, but they really have made things more complicated or more annoying, or just have not been beneficial to you, maybe this is a good time to pass those along and just accept that they were just not for you and not for your pantry, and you can pass them on to somebody else. Number 6 are items that you haven't used in the last year. So it's very similar to the last one. These random items that maybe should live in your pantry, maybe shouldn't. But if they've been kind of shoved in there, like all those roasting pans or casserole dishes that couldn't fit anywhere else, but they fit on the top of your pantry, but realistically you have not touched them in over a year or over 2 years, maybe it's time to bite the bullet, let those go, and free up that space for actual food or actual pantry items, or something that you are using on a regular basis that would be very handy to have nearby. Wine glasses are a good example. Alcohol, wine, a lot of people end up putting a lot of their alcohol and wine into their pantries, but end up never really using it. So anything in there that you haven't used lately can maybe just be passed along. Category number 7 is packaging. One of my favorite things to do when I come home and I bring the groceries home, one of the first things I do, if I do nothing else, is I get rid of as much packaging as possible. This includes pantry items and like fridge, freezer items, anything. Reducing the packaging increases your space. You have more space for items. It makes it easier to see what you have, and it reduces the visual clutter. This might mean that you decant items. These cereals, actually what we buy, we take this whole container right to the bulk store and we can fill up items right there. But reducing packaging doesn't necessarily have to mean decanting things. So if we get a box, say, of granola bars, the box that the granola bars came in, it never even sees the inside of my pantry. I rip that open and I drop all of the granola bars into the bin that we have that has snacks and spreads. If we buy cereal at the actual grocery store, it comes in the bags and boxes. I get rid of the box almost immediately and I have the bag. This is an example with crackers. So I take the box, I just wrap an elastic around it, or we use a little clip like that, and it saves so much space. Like cracker and cereal boxes on a pantry this size, it doesn't function very well. Another example is you can combine things. So I know that we have these 2 types of goldfish right now, and somehow they both got opened at the same time, which I normally wouldn't do, but these are ones I've had longer. I'm going to dump them directly into the top of this bag because then they'll get used quicker, and they'll be used first. And secondly, then I only have 1 bag kicking around. So as much packaging as you can get rid of as possible is so handy. Our pantry is very simple, very straightforward. We have a category on each shelf, on each level, and we have a bin at the front of each shelf that holds everything for that category. So our bottom is our pasta and rice, which is grains. Then we have our baking items. Then we have breakfast. We have snacks and spreads, and then on the top shelf is what I call cans, which includes anything, any sort of cans, jars, anything that we're using as ingredients to make dinner and lunches. We have deep shelves, which is very common in a style like this. And so anything that we have that doesn't fit in the actual bin, if it's something big and bulky, like say our huge thing of flour and sugar, we just keep it right in behind. We keep the bulky stuff right in behind the bins. It kind of prevents us from putting little bits back there, which is nice, because the little bits are what get lost in the shuffle. Then the actual bins in the front hold all of the smaller bits that that would get lost if we didn't have bins. Keeping things in categories and a few bins will go a long way to an organized pantry. Number 8 are spices that don't get used or that have gone clumpy or bad. So basically just reviewing your spice collection. It is another super common thing that we'll see is people buy an entire set of spices. You know how you can buy them, say they come in a jar, or that comes on, say maybe a spice rack. They give you 24 spices or something. But if realistically you've had this for 10 years and you only use, 6 to 8 of the spices, then maybe you can minimize that. Maybe you can get rid of the ones that are never being used, if they've never been opened maybe, or that like I said, have kind of gone bad and you went through a phase where you use them a lot, but you're not really using them anymore and it's sort of gone kind of clumpy. You know how spices can get chunky on the inside. And if you're very sticky on expiry dates, spices is another one to look for expiry dates because they expire quicker than you think. So that's the one thing we don't keep in this pantry, but we use the same bin, pretty much. I think it's the same bin. So we have a bin and it just says savory, and it has all of our spices and apparently a few baking things, and that lives in one of our upper cabinets right beside the oven and the stove. And then I can grab, because these are items that we're using, say when we're cooking dinner each night, and mainly salt and pepper is what we're using the most, and that usually lives in here as well. Category number 9 are seasonal foods that will no longer be good for the following season. So for example, Christmas food right now, it is January, so we got approximately 1,000 candy canes. It felt like this year. I have been proactively, mindfully putting these in Leo's lunches regularly. So I know he loves candy canes. He's the only one in the house that really likes candy canes. We probably had about a dozen candy canes left last week, and I showed him, I said, here's our collection of candy canes. Which ones do you like or not like? And he said, oh, no, I don't like those little ones, or I don't like that. And he said he loved these particular kind. So I kept the ones he actually said he liked. And then, like I said, I have been putting them in his lunches and using them up. Another thing to do with like seasonal food that you think, oh my gosh, like at Easter, you go overrun with Easter eggs. Like, how am I gonna ever use up all these Easter eggs? If you like baking and you think, yes, I will definitely use this for baking, I have seen a ton of people take these out of the packaging, crumble them up and put them in the freezer, and you can use them for like if you're making like chocolate bark or mint brownies or something, and you can sprinkle that on top. We did a very similar thing at Halloween. So our kids ate their Halloween candy, and then we obviously had a ton left over. We got a lot this year. So I took everything out of the package, I chopped up all of the candy, and I put all of that into jars into the freezer, and then I ended up making like little Halloween cookies. You can, if you Google it, you can find a million examples of this. We ended up using it that way. You know yourself, or you could send them with your partner to work. Scott is an electrician, and I could probably send treats with him every single day, and he put them on the lunch table and they'd probably be gone by the end of the day. So that's another good option. But whatever you do, I would not keep a seasonal item around for an entire year for it just to get thrown out the following year. Another very similar thing is having these items from a treat bag or a loot bag from birthday parties. That's a big thing that we've got recently. I try to be strategic. Like, I make that decision right off the bat. Am I gonna let the kids have these popping candy shock rocks, whatever that is? And if so, then I will keep them and I will put them out for after school snack or for lunch or whatever. I make that decision. Or I think, you know what, I do not want, this is too many for me, this will overwhelm me. I just instantly let them go. If I know the kids aren't gonna notice and aren't gonna care, I do not clog up my pantry with that stuff. Like, I get it out as soon as possible. Last category number 10 are baking supplies that you are thinking, I'm probably never gonna use this. So like I mentioned earlier, if you bought a bunch of different type of flour or sugars, if you were on like a big baking kick and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I am never gonna actually use this. We gave away our bread maker and I realized I'm gluten-free and I'm never gonna use this stuff up. Like, let it go. If you are not consistently baking, baking supplies can eat up a ton of room in your pantry. And if they're just not getting consistently used, then they might not be worth using up that like prime real estate. Here's a great example in our house. So this is a little container of icing swirled frosting. A couple weeks ago, my mom got the kids, or she brought the kids, she like re-gifted us some sugar cookies, I think, that were just from Christmas time that she didn't want anymore. And the kids said, I think like Annie Rose must have said, I want to decorate the cookies. So like a grandma does, she's like, okay, for sure. And she went and bought this frosting, and they attempted it one day after school when she was babysitting, and it did not work. It was a disaster. The frosting just like wasn't what she thought. I'm not sure if it had gone bad or what was going on with it. And she covered it up, some saran wrap and elastic, and it has been sitting in my pantry since then. We have not touched it. We probably will never touch it. We don't need pink frosting for anything right now, and if it didn't work for the cookies, we're probably not gonna use it. I know that's something today that I can toss and never have to look at it again. Those are my 10 categories. Those are my 10 ideas. I hope they help you. Hope they give you a few ideas and some inspiration. When we work on a client's home, or if I'm on my own home, I often pull everything out of a pantry or everything out of a space to deal with it. But if the thought of that scares the heck of you or makes you think, oh my gosh, like I'd rather do a marathon than clean up my pantry, then start small and just pick through. Like, you don't have to necessarily take everything out, but take 10 minutes while you're making dinner and look through one shelf or one bin and think, yikes, like, why did I buy this Mexican corn 3 years ago? I don't remember. I lost the recipe I was going to use it for, and I want that out. In pantries, I feel like that's one area that you can definitely do bit by bit, little by little. And I will say it is totally worth it. Your kitchen and pantry are spaces you are in constantly, every day, multiple times per day. So having them simplified and functional goes a long way in making your days and routines easier. So I'm gonna go and do a couple of these little things in our pantry that I said I was going to do. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and tune in next week. I think next week is my budgeting video. So I'm gonna share with you our very, very simple and easy and straightforward budgeting system and how we do it. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.